Fire Greg Berhalter. That's the theme of my thesis today. All right, you have to fire the head coach of the U.S. national team. You have to do it as soon as possible. Okay, now I might have slept through the game. I did, because it kicked off at 3 a.m. local time in Sweden, which is where I am. But the United States lost. It lost to Uruguay. Now, did it deserve to lose? Yeah, probably. Was the goal offside? Yeah, probably. We're going to dig into a lot of that different stuff. But the most important takeaway is, like, you got to zoom out. Don't lose the forest for the trees here, right? I feel like a lot of people get lost in the weeds, right? And I didn't even get to watch the game live because it kicked off at 3 a.m. I really appreciate my friend Yabe allowing me to use her setup. We're staying at her and Nim's place the next couple of days. Going to do a streamed watch along of some of the games later. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm going to be making mashed potatoes as well. We're going to be like cooking food and watching the game. I don't know. I'm trying to become a professional streamer here. So I'll see that'll be happening on Twitch. But the most important takeaway, okay, when this is zoomed all the way out, is that Berhalter has to go. Because if we look at the tournament, one, no host of Copa America has ever been knocked out in the fucking group stage, ever, until now. The United States has hosted 20 international tournaments, Gold Cups, Nations Leagues, and for the second time, I believe, ever, a Copa America. And in the previous 19, it had always made it out of the group stage. Even when the United States was trash, it would make it out of the group stage. This is the first time the United States has not made it out of the group stage. And it does not feel like a reach to say that getting knocked out by Panama and Bolivia, a group with those two teams in it, like one of those two teams has to finish ahead of us to knock us out of the group, is one of the greatest embarrassments in the history of the national team, right? Because you could say that missing every World Cup from 1950 to 1990 is incredibly embarrassing, but nobody gave a shit. There was no infrastructure in place. There was barely a team together trying to qualify. Now, everybody gives a shit. Everybody's paying attention. We've got a group of players that are good, right, that play at a very high level. We've got, one of Juventus top midfielders. We've got a guy that scored the most goal contributions from wing at AC Milan in a long time. We have players. We have dudes that people spend actual money on to buy, that go to different major clubs and actually play significant minutes. They exist on our team. It's a team that has a lot of financial backing, right? In a distinct advantage over teams like Bolivia and Panama in terms of just national infrastructure of the federation itself. And to be able to go into a tournament like this with not only, just a Copa America at home, which would be a huge deal, but a home World Cup coming up, which you want to crescendo the entire development of your team into a home World Cup, then you show up and you get grouped by Panama. I don't care what happened. I don't care if there was a nuclear strike, like if they were dropping bombs on the field and that's the reason that you ended up losing the match against Panama, right? I don't care, right? Because nothing else should matter. Just that list of facts and the fact that this is just probably the greatest embarrassment in the history of the U.S. national team. Now, I am aware, I got to admit, I was wrong. Right? I stepped into this position. I stepped into this situation, and I said that the United States was probably the third best team in Copa America. Well, it turns out we're not. I think talent-wise we might be. If you go player by player, position by position, transfer mark value, whatever else you want to, we're not the third best team in the Western Hemisphere. I don't think we're particularly close. I'd take Colombia. I'd take Uruguay, right? The way Venezuela's playing, I don't think we'd be able to beat them either. We probably wouldn't even get a shot on target because that's what we fucking do. We don't do anything. We do nothing. Absolutely nothing. We just putter around and then we finish the match and here's the thing. I realize this is not going to be the most organized train of thought, so you're just going to have to ride with me as we go through this. We are stuck in a perpetual someday soon mode. There's this idea that at some point, someday we're building towards something. Well, eventually you have to have actually built something, right? You can't just sit there and go, man, we really, progress. We almost got him. We were so close. That was good effort, right? Well, you got to actually, if this isn't going in the opposite direction, I don't know what is, right? What do you mean progress? What do you mean? Well, I got to get into these quotes. Okay. I got to get into the match and then what was said afterwards. But all of this, whether it was like, oh, Tim Weah got a red card and the ref was terrible, like nothing else should matter. You cannot get grouped in any federation with an ounce of self-respect. 1 ounce of self-respect fires everyone after this, right? The expectation is just beyond this now. And people care and the country is invested and you come out and you lay an egg like this. Right after charging people $500 for tickets, right, to go to a game where we're just getting, you know, like where we suck, right? Because, I mean, with the amount of money you're making off of tickets, can't you get somebody better than Greg Berhalter to coach this freaking national team? I mean, if you're gouging everybody's eyes out, this tournament encapsulates every single thing wrong with the U.S. with the U.S. Federation. Every single thing that U.S. soccer does wrong is encapsulated in what happened in this tournament. From valuing ticket prices over atmosphere, right, which is just such a brain-dead decision, makes absolutely no sense to me, right? You're trying to find the exact amount of money that you can make the most people pay so that you make the most money so that you can spend it on, I don't know, some stupid corrupt thing. Like, because what are you spending it on? Seriously. Okay, I said I was going to get into the match at some point, but if you're the U.S. Soccer Federation, the fuck are you spending all of that money on? Because it's not anything that's helped the damn national team. You're not hiring a better coach with it, right? Greg Berhalter is like one of the worst paid coaches in the entirety of Copa America. So I know you're not spending the money on coaching, right? And you're not spending the money to help improve infrastructure in any meaningful way for the U.S. youth players, because playing youth soccer in the United States is crazy expensive. And so you're just wasting a bunch of opportunity to develop talented youngsters because there's no actual youth academy system to speak of in any serious way, which is why the U.S. national team is composed of players whose parents were able to pay for that sort of shit. Like, I don't know, Gio Reyna or Timothy Weah. Like, good God, man. If you're charging that much for tickets, where does the money go? Just into the pockets of a bunch of people that clearly don't know how to do their jobs in the first place, because the United States, with the resources that it has and the explosive growth of the game in the United States and the talent that's already on the team, there should be no excuse for this. Greg Berhalter, by all means, should not be the only person being held responsible. But getting into the match itself, the referee was tyrannical, right? The standard of refereeing in Copa America has been shocking, right? It's not just been like an anti-US thing. It's just been bad all over the place. I'm going to show you a clip that absolutely blew my mind. See if you can even figure out what's going on in this particular clip. This is just like an example of the weird sort of shit that was happening throughout the entire game for the US and Uruguay. Here you go. So Uruguay's got the ball here. They're going to get fouled. Boom. Big foul. Now I want you to watch the referee here. He comes striding towards the play, yellow card out. That's painful to watch. That's painful to watch. He stops the play to award a yellow card, right? Which you're supposed to stop and hold the play at that point. But then the Uruguay guy, who's unaware that the yellow card's kind of being handed out behind the play and that the referee's kind of stopping the play, sees an opportunity to take a quick free kick. Well, the referee has already stun-locked everybody on both teams with the exception of this one guy on Uruguay that's playing the free kick because he's awarding a yellow card. And then you watch him try to play it off as he gives the sign for advantage. Which, if you're giving away a quick free kick, that's not fucking advantage, right? Like, I realize I'm American, right? And the rules, they're not necessarily my strong suit. But advantage are when you allow a team to play through a foul, which means he doesn't notice the Uruguay player, hit the ball with his hand, stop it in place, and try and take the free kick quickly, which is what he's attempting to do here. Right, so this referee is clearly out of his depth, completely lost control of the game, and he's a petulant child, by the way. Christian Pulisic, who was obviously upset after the game, attempted to shake this referee's hand, at which point the referee, and I'm not even kidding, he goes like this. He swerves Christian Pulisic, who is the captain of the U.S. team, right? Swerves his handshake. How can you do that and not get fined or reprimanded? You're the ref. You're supposed to be impartial, aemotional, right? Your emotions are not supposed to be involved in all this nonsense. And then, of course, there was the goal where he's clearly offside in this position. This is the guy that ends up scoring. Now, Copa America did this whole thing where they decided to basically they didn't play out the video. Ugh. Look, if your tournament is big as Copa America, I'm just going to be honest, you got to have semi-automated offside because that technology saves you so many problems. You have to have it. Right. But what they did is they paused the video basically earlier than this. Now, as you can see, the ball is still on the guy's head. But if you rewind this a few frames, he's onside, but the ball is over here, essentially. Right. Because the guy is just starting to head it. So they paused it, half a second earlier in this video and drew some pretty weird looking lines. And this was Uruguay's only goal. They ended up winning 1-0. But there was a point right before this free kick where the United States was actually going through because Bolivia tied it with Panama 1-1. Panama would go on to win 3-1. But if the U.S. and Panama drew, the U.S. was actually going to go through. And Greg Berhalter did something that I absolutely hate. Now, mind you, like I said, this is right before the free kick. Greg Berhalter is screaming at his team to tell them that the other match is 1-1. Now, here's my 2 cents. I'm just a guy. I'm just a man, after all. If you're relying on Bolivia to get any sort of result in order to send yourself through, fucking give up now. Just stop. Just go home. Go back to failing in the Swedish second division and leave my damn national team alone. Greg seems like a perfectly nice guy. Right. And a lot of the different things I've read, and obviously I've been, dealing with Greg Berhalter for a long time. I have nothing against him as a person. Right. But he is not a very good coach relative to the type of coach that should be in charge of the U.S. national team, which is somebody with some sort of winning experience. Right? He's never won a trophy at club level. He was fired from the Swedish second division for not being offensive enough. He has a solid winning record in MLS. That's it. That does not qualify you to be the top coach in the United States. It just does not. And the loser mentality, the straight up loser mentality required to be passing along the fact that Bolivia is drawing Panama, which obviously didn't end up fucking mattering at all because Panama's better than Bolivia. They ended up scoring 2 more goals anyways and ended the game. Right? The loser mentality required. I don't want this near my national team. Right? Like it's just a loser move. Like you understand it in principle because you're like, well, we might need to pack it in, but there's no way you can you can rationalize relying on Bolivia getting a result. Bolivia is just not very good. I mean, if you watch the U.S. game against Bolivia, the U.S. should have won that game 5-0. Absolutely dominated them. Right. So you can't go around just assuming that team's going to be able to get a result. I mean, the only instance where you should be doing this is if Bolivia is up by like 3 goals, right? And hell is frozen over. But to do this and then to have them score on the ensuing free kick is just such great evidence of having a bad feel for exactly how to do this sort of stuff. Now, after the match, the excuses started to flow. U.S. Soccer released a statement. Our tournament performance fell short of expectations. We must do better. We will be conducting a comprehensive review of our performance and how we'd improve the team and results as we look towards the 2026 World Cup. Now, I was disappointed in this because this wasn't an immediate let's fire Greg Berhalter situation, which it should have been. I am worried by the way that this is worded, that they don't want to fire Greg Berhalter. And I think honestly, I think they're all scared. I think that Greg Berhalter, coach, is scared. I think that Greg Berhalter, he's afraid. I think that the U.S. Federation is scared. I think that they're scared of change. I think Greg Berhalter is a very familiar face. I think the U.S. Federation is scared of what the players will say because the players all love Greg Berhalter. But look, even Carly Lloyd made an excellent point after the game. Somebody I don't necessarily agree with a ton. She said, we won championships and we hated our coaches. I question if they're too comfortable in that locker room. I think I agree with her. I think that the U.S. Federation is afraid to fire Greg because all the players love Greg. But you know why all the players love Greg? It's because Greg rolls out the same lineup every time and does whatever they want. A coach is not supposed to do whatever the players want. There's never been a good coach in the history of ever in anything that just satiated the players and got the hell out of the way. Because if the players knew best, then player managers would still be a thing, right? But they don't, right? Which is why you have a manager. That's why the classroom has a teacher, right? The students are not going to teach themselves. You need somebody that is in charge, okay? And Carly Lloyd making an excellent point that when she won championships with the U.S. women's national team, she was a member of the really good U.S., she won the women's Ballon d'Or thing a couple times, whatever. A very, very good player, not a great pundit, but again, can't agree enough with her point that just the fact that all of the players love Greg Berhalter because he's a guy's guy and seems to be a really likable guy. I think the U.S. Federation's afraid to fire Greg because they're afraid to piss the players off. I think they're just a bunch of scaredy cats. I'm going to break out the elementary school terms here. I think they are just a bunch of scaredy cats. And I think that a shift 2 years before their home World Cup, when they clearly rehired Greg Berhalter with the idea that he would lead the team for the next 4 years, even though I don't think he had earned it to begin with, I think I just don't think they have the guts to reconsider that. And I would not be surprised if Greg Berhalter was not fired. If you need more evidence that the players are really just in love with Greg Berhalter, that's the way it is. This is Matt Turner, the U.S. goalkeeper, after the game, said, "I see no issue with the direction we're heading. When you have a fight like that on the pitch in every single game we're in this tournament, it speaks volumes to how the manager prepares us." I mean, God, could you glaze him anymore? Right, I interviewed Matt Turner for our podcast, Player Manager Podcast, and Matt Turner's a fabulous guy. I got nothing bad to say about Matt Turner. But this makes no sense to me. This embodies the wait till next year vibe of the U.S. national team. Now, Matt is incredibly media trained, and he's always going to say the right thing. I'm to be honest, I don't know if you're ever really going to get Matt Turner's actual thoughts on this situation. So I don't know if he secretly hates Berhalter or not, right? But Matt Turner also, he owes a lot of his career to Greg Berhalter, who gave him a shot at a Gold Cup and then ended up moving to the Premier League based off of his performances with the U.S. national team. Like, Matt Turner's career has exploded under Greg Berhalter, so I understand his affinity towards him, but this mentality drives me crazy. Because how do you not leave a tournament where you finish behind Panama and get grouped at your home Copa America and say we're headed in, you see no issue with the direction we're heading? I see an issue. Not winning games. That's an issue. And of course, they were interviewing Greg Berhalter after the game. They asked him if he was the right person to lead the team. He said yes. That sentence scares me, honestly, because it makes me think that the U.S. Federation's kind of already told him that he might stay. And he also said the whole thing is you want to keep moving the team forward. And I feel like we have. Greg, you just haven't. Like, I realize truth is a bitter pill to swallow, but the team isn't moving forward, right? What have we accomplished under Greg Berhalter that we hadn't accomplished before? Fucking nothing. Nothing. We've been to the World Cup round of 16 before. We do it like all the time. 3 of the last 4 World Cups, the United States has been to the round of 16. Those other 2 were with less talented teams, by the way. Right? Win the Gold Cup, whoop-de-frickin' do. Beat Mexico, whoop-de-frickin' do. Right? But he didn't beat any team in the top 25 of the world rankings that isn't Mexico. He has not. 0 teams in the top 25 of the world rankings that aren't Mexico. He's doing nothing that we haven't already done, and he's accomplishing that nothing with a more talented team, a team that everybody and their mother agrees is more talented than any team the U.S. has ever had before. And yet, he just insists the team's moving forward. I mean, this sounds similar to what Matt Turner is saying. It's like they had the team meeting where they just sat down after this result and they went, well, guys, the team's moving in the right direction. I really think we're just moving in the right direction. I think that's just really one. Shut up. I'm tired of moving in the right direction. Win games. If you don't win games, get out, because we have the resources in the team to be a hell of a lot better than this. And right now, we just aren't. We just aren't. And that's, and you know what? If you aren't good enough, you got to change something. Okay.